Folks, it's July 17th, 2017 at 7 p.m. We're calling to order this meeting of the Brattleboro Development Review Board. We are a little bit short this evening. One of our members has unfortunately moved away, and so tonight we have a board of 4. Under our bylaws, any application needs 4 votes to pass. We're supposed to have 7 people up here, and it's supposed to be a majority of 7. And we expect to possibly have one more person joining us? No? Okay.
We'll review the video.
Oh, okay, so we've got one more vote out there who can review the video. So there's a potential 5 votes for tonight. And we may have a 6th member joining us shortly. But unfortunately, this is as many people as volunteered for the board. What we do to deal with this situation is if the applicants want to present, that's fine. And we generally give people a sort of a weather report, I guess you would call it, of where we stand. And you can figure out, do you have the 4 votes necessary to pass? If the answer is no, and you want to have the 5th person listen, well, that's fine. If the answer is you want to try to get a 6th person, we have to have that person, God willing, apply to be part of the board and get voted in, and it would probably delay the application at least 1 month, and that's probably being conservative. This is a personnel issue that we have, and I'm embarrassed by it, and you should be getting 7 people on the board. We just can't find 7 volunteers, and I'm very sorry for that. But our goal is to try to resolve that problem in a way that's fair to all of the applicants. So we can have an open dialogue about this with each person that comes before us when you come sit at that table. We can give you a pretty good idea of where we stand, and we're going to try to get through this without causing applicants misery. But we still have to vote at the end of the day, and it's still going to be only 4 votes here and only that 1 vote, and I'm very sorry for that. So that's issue number 1. I know a couple people have been here, but I give the same opening remarks at every meeting to explain what this is and how the procedures work, and that's what this part is. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, we operate on the record, which means that we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties who are involved, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that because we are on the record, this is your only opportunity to comment on or provide evidence relating to any of the applications. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, the court will not take new testimony or consider new evidence at its hearing. It'll look at the record we've established tonight to determine if the facts support our legal conclusions. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision that we make, so we strongly encourage all of you to speak up at this hearing. As we're on the record, we're going to ask that anybody who thinks there's even a modicum of possibility that you're going to speak be sworn in, because this is effectively like giving testimony in court. So if anybody who thinks they're going to speak could raise their right hand, I'm going to swear you in. Okay, you ready? Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay. If you didn't get sworn in and you wish to change your mind and speak, that's okay. I will re-swear you in. If you're not sworn in, you're not technically on the record. We're not supposed to consider what you say. And if we're appealed, the appeal court is not supposed to consider what you say. So if you want to speak, please tell me that you are not sworn in. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That's 4 votes because our minimum, our board is supposed to be 7. If we don't have a full board present to hear your application, we'll consider a request to continue your application to the next public meeting, as I said earlier. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of this hearing. While we may vote on an application at the hearing, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for an appeal. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town does not have a special status before this board. Documents provided to this board by the town planning department, the town attorney, or any other town department or representative will be considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant or any interested party. Mr. Bannon, was this meeting properly warned?
Yes, it was.
We have a conflict of interest for Mr. Annis with respect to application 1756, Winston Prouty. Are there any other conflicts of interest or ex parte communications? Okay, the first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from our meeting June 19th, 2017.
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. We have some discussion.
Yes. I already talked to Brian about this, and I think he's made the change, but on the second page, the motion about Winston Prouty was not made by Eric Annis. It was made by Mike. And then I seconded.
Yeah, so that is reflected in bold on the bottom of page 2.
Yeah. So he's already made the change in the official.
It's a good catch that the one guy with the conflict of interest was not reflected in our minutes as making that motion. Thank you very much. So keeping that in mind, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. The first application is 2017-99, McDonald's Corporation, request for a variance. So when you set up your visuals, can you keep in mind the camera for the folks at home?
Okay.
Generally, we have people do it like against that wall, and then we can see it and he can train in on it. Would somebody close that door, please? Thanks.
Good evening, I'm Owen Spolster with Bowler Engineering. I'm here to represent McDonald's, and tonight we're seeking a variance in regards to the freestanding sign. Originally, it was our intent to keep the existing freestanding sign, but during the approval process with Vermont Transportation, it was the original surveyor had the freestand or the right-of-way in a different location than V-Trans reported to have. So the right-of-way in this area was basically moved back 30 feet.
30 feet.
Yeah. So
Never had the redevelopment. Sorry.
our existing freestanding sign was in the right-of-way. So our second original plan was to put a compliant sign in a green space island in the front parking field. Decided that McDonald's was looking for a little bit more exposure, and it's a very competitive area with Taco Bell, Wendy's nearby, impulse-driven business such as McDonald's or fast food in general. We're looking to get a little bit more exposure, so we're asking for relief for the freestanding sign by moving it closer than the required 10 feet to the front property line and making it a little bit larger than is allowed and raising it up slightly from what's allowed by the town code. And
Can I ask a stupid question before you continue? It looks like you marked the property line at the edge of the right-of-way. Is that right, or am I misreading the plan here? There's a line that's parallel to the road.
correct.
And it's in your front yard. There, this.
Yes.
Are you considering that the edge of the property?
That's what we're considering. That's Vermont Transportation's right-of-way line.
Right. But I mean, I can't remember, we must have had an application where this came up. But do we consider the setback from the right-of-way or from the actual edge of the fee?
It's It's written that the setback is from the property boundary itself on the right of way.
Yeah, see, I mean, without commenting about the height or size, it seems to me to be a very conservative interpretation that it's got to be in from the right of way, and I can't remember us ever taking that position. What's the ordinance?
The ordinance clearly says that the 10-foot setback is from the property boundary itself.
And technically, your property boundary is right in the middle of Putney Road, probably, right?
From what I understand, it was along
Oh, it's on the edge?
on the edge.
So the state actually owns the fee underneath the road?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if that was the property line, if we considered the edge of the pavement the property line, or whatever the surveyed line is on your,
Center line of the road or edge of pavement, we would meet the 10-foot setback.
that would meet the 10-foot setback?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I just wanted to sort that out first, but please continue.
Okay. So, I don't know if you want me to go through the criteria.
That's generally the way we do it, but it's
Yeah.
totally up to you. Can I
Yeah.
just make you pause for 1 second? Fred, are you able to see this where he's standing, or should he stand on the other side?
If you're able to stand on the other side or just angle a little more this way, either one of us would help.
Perfect. You'd be amazed how many people watch this on television, but I'll have critics in the street if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
Can the board see all?
Yeah, yeah, this is
All
fine.
right, great.
And we have it on paper in front of us, so it's a
Great.
little easier.
Again, the original application was, the dimensional standards for a freestanding sign at this location are maximum area 64 square feet, maximum height of 20 feet, minimum setback of 10. As we discussed, we were looking for a slightly larger sign, so 8 feet larger at 72 square feet. Higher, we wanted to go to 30 feet, and we wanted this zero setback, but from the board's interpretation, that might not be an issue.
Right.
So again, originally, we had it meeting all the code. McDonald's is a impulse-driven business, and once a car is past McDonald's, they're not coming back. They don't turn around typically to come back to McDonald's. So signage is very important to McDonald's, and we believe that there is, unique physical circumstances or conditions. V-Trans indicated that the original sign was in their right-of-way. It was there since 1970, assumed it met all the dimensional requirements at the time, if there were any. And during the process, they said, that sign's in our right-of-way, we'd like it pulled back, removed, so here we are. So there is definitely unique situations, physical situation that requires the sign to be moved back.
Do I correctly understand that the height and the size increase are in order to counterbalance it being further away?
Correct.
No other reason than that, right?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
No. Similar signs, in the area for the Wendy's and the Taco Bell are within 8 feet or 15 feet, depending on the sign of the curb line. And McDonald's, where we're proposing it, it's going to be about 34 feet. That being said, we'd like to make the sign a little larger, a little higher to try to make up for that distance. We believe that making it a little larger, a little taller would not be seen as an issue because it will be further than most of the signs along the Putney Road in that area.
I recognize this isn't totally relevant, but was it just a freak coincidence that V-Trans asked about the sign being moved, or did they know the construction was going on and they said, stay out of our right-of-way in the future?
Well, no, they knew it. We had to go to them.
Okay.
They required a couple items. They wanted the curbing along the front of the road, along Putney Road rebuilt, They had input on the sidewalk, which is now in their right-of-way.
Mm-hmm.
They had input on the width of the driveway. Again, it's in their right-of-way.
Right.
So they even had input into, we had an existing connection, we still do, to the drainage system in Long Putney Road that they own. So that was part of the deliberations with V-Trans. So yeah, it was a part of the whole approval process to get their blessing on the project.
What was the square footage of the prior sign and how far from the line I'm using when I say the side of the road was it?
The existing sign, here, let me get my scale real quick. The existing sign, edge of the front of the sign is about 7 or 8 feet from the curb line of Putney Road.
And what's the square footage of the existing?
I don't know if I know that.
You can give me a ballpark. I mean, let me ask you this way. Do you know if it's smaller than the proposed? Or larger? Or about the
I
same?
believe it would be, I'm just trying to think of, drove by, I'm not even sure if it's still standing.
I don't think it is. Because I went up there
It's not
today.
there. I
Yeah.
drove by it the other day.
Yeah, I did a drive-by today, hoping to look at it. And
Yeah.
yeah, they're moving pretty quickly up there.
This is a,
If you don't know, that's
Yeah.
fine. I was just curious.
I'm not really certain. I could probably find that out. but-
Do you know what the landscaping is going to be yet in the right-of-way area?
Yeah, there's some trees, there's a couple street trees we put in, some shrubs in this area,
What's the height of those?
The shrubs are typically low-lying shrubs, 2 or 3 feet. We wouldn't want anything taller in that area. And the trees, again, you know, that they don't really block sight lines too much because the trunk is relatively small in diameter.
Okay. Do other members of the board have any questions? I don't really.
Just looking for the original.
No, want the ordinance up?
No, the original copy.
Do you folks want to have an executive session? Do you want to talk about it out here? Oh, I forgot to ask for public comment. Are there members of the public who wish to speak? Sir, if you could come up to the microphone and just say who you are. And if you own a property that's around here, if you could just identify that property.
Were you sworn in?
Yes.
I did.
Oh,
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
He did.
I can do it again with both hands.
No, I saw.
I didn't notice.
That's okay. We got you.
My name is Francis Essien. The last name is spelled E-S-S-I-E-N. I actually represent McDonald's also. And I think one of the main concerns that we have here is that the abutting properties tend to have very high vegetation, called it trees, that totally conceal our previous signs and also still conceal the sign that we are proposing to install. Now, this is not self-imposed, since we are simply responding to circumstances that we cannot necessarily control. We cannot cut those trees down, and even assuming that we follow the dictates of what the code is demanding of us right now, we would still have no use of the new sign that we are going to install. So we are asking the board to help us here so that at least we can be on equal footing with the competition beside us.
The trees you're referring to, are they generally in the right over the corner where the Days Inn is? Is it Days Inn? Super 8. Super 8.
They are on they are on Super 8 property, and I think then we also have equal visitation on the business next door, the combined.
KFC, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. You don't want to say their name? Give them free advertising? Sorry.
We remove them from there because they are not as good as we are.
Right. That's the way to do it. Okay. I think I see.
But the rest of the landscaping will still be provided for. It's a brand new facility. While we like to contribute to landscaping, but at least we would prefer that visibility is not impeded.
Right.
By I think the sideline too is which was alluded to, is that once somebody drives, as an impulse business, if you can't see the sign ahead of time, then the tendency of trying to turn afterwards is not encouraged because of the ongoing traffic in the area. Now, finally, if we happen to move the sign forward, we will also commit to the board that if in future the state comes back and said, well, we are asking everybody to move all of their signs back, we will be willing to do so.
Right.
At that time.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak in addition? Do you guys want to do executive session? Do you want to talk? Okay. We're going to take a quick executive session. I would expect between 5 and 10 minutes. Let's have a motion.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Passes 4-0. Okay, it's 7:30. We're back on the record after an executive session. The board met in executive session, and we reached a consensus regarding the following issues. The first, with respect to the right-of-way. Our conclusion was that the zoning administrator's interpretation of the right-of-way was overly conservative, in the sense that the edge of the right-of-way was considered to be the property line. Our view is that the property line is the edge of the road, and that the ordinance is not meant to refer to the edge of the right-of-way, but the edge of the road in an instance like this. And thus, there's no need for us to review the variance criteria with respect to how far the sign is from the edge of the property line. The applicant could place it any distance up to 10 feet from the road, as far as we're concerned with the town ordinance. Now, we take no position on what the state wants to do with its right-of-way, and obviously it has property rights that extend there, even if it doesn't own the underlying parcel. But from a town perspective, our view is that if it's 10 feet from the road, that's consistent with the ordinance, and thus the variance is unnecessary. With respect to the applicant's other requests, the variance criteria is the product of Vermont statutes, and the statutes, they set a very high threshold for what is required in order to obtain a variance, including that the physical circumstances or conditions prevent the property from possibly being developed in conformity with the regulations. That's generally the biggest hurdle for any applicant for a variance to overcome, and we don't feel that this application has overcome that, in addition to the other statutory criteria. The primary basis is because that, based on our interpretation of the ordinance, it will be able to be closer to the road, and the ordinance was just changed to allow 64 square feet. When was that, 2015? In 2015 it went from 32 to 64, and the other signs on that strip were developed during the 32 square foot era. So even if there was some hardship caused by those signs being somewhat closer or somewhat taller, our conclusion is that it's likely counterbalanced by the new ordinance, which allows for a larger square footage of sign. And we didn't feel that the foliage presented a significantly obvious blockade, where at the height of the ordinance and the size as presently allowed, the property would be rendered unusable for its present purpose. So if I could have a motion to deny the application, except to note that despite our denial of the variance from the setback, we're effectively ruling that that sign can be moved closer to the road line. We can proceed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks.
The next application is application 2017-56. It's Chloe Learey for Winston Prouty Center. This is the final stage of a 3-meeting run we've had with this application. And do we have a representative tonight?
We don't, they asked
Okay.
if they should send somebody. I indicated that they should, because this is mostly administrative cleanup.
That's fine. Could you explain it, just so I'm not, as a voting member, also explaining the application?
Definitely. Yes, so this is an Act 250, local Act 250 application for the amendment to Winston Prouty PUD. The board has heard in the past review of the PUD amendment itself, which is a subdivision approval. There's considerable overlap between the review criteria, the only exception being the local Act 250 review also includes municipal impacts and educational impacts. Your packet contains a form filled out by Winston Prouty for the local Act 250 review criteria. And they claim that there will be no impacts on educational facilities because it will be a retirement housing only. And the town has made no finding of burdens to municipal services either. And it's conforming to the municipal plan as the board has already found for the subdivision approval.
So, with that in mind, it seems appropriate to me, unless you guys have questions for Brian, that we amend would we be amending, how do we do this
It will just be a
procedurally?
separate decision.
What's that?
It will be a separate decision.
A separate decision, to issue a new decision with local Act 250 approval. So if we have a motion or if we have questions, we should discuss this. We should have, I mean, basically the deal is we should have done this at the last meeting when the applicant was here. It was a large application. We discussed a number of things that were really not apposite to this issue. And we didn't get to it.
No, I think I'm good.
I'm fine with that.
I'd make that motion.
Okay?
Second.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't ask for public comments. Are there any members of the public here who wish to speak to the application 2017-56 about the Winston Prouty Center? Okay, so there's no members of the public. The motion is on the table. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
No.
Three.
Vote.
Three.
I didn't.
No, so it passes 3-0. And Brian, could you please, who's watching the tape?
Catherine is watching the tape.
Okay, could you ensure that she watches the tape and renders her vote? So I suppose that's just in the ether for now. The next application is 2017-81, Christian Stromberg for Tim and Lucinda Cuthbertson.
About your easel.
Sure.
You charge
Which
for
one?
that, you know.
I brought visuals too.
It's all right.
I was advised not to
Don't lose
bring.
your decision with a pride. We don't want that. Just, can you give me a second to, I need to unshuffle my papers here. And I suppose I'll just note for the record that Tim Cuthbertson and Timberly Hund are both former members of the DRB. I've had no contact with either of them.
Go through them.
Do you need to be sworn in?
You got an emergency?
Thunderstorm?
Bang, bop, bada boom.
Anyway, Tim Cuthbertson and Timberly Hund are both former members of this board. I've had no contact with them. I assume none of you have either.
I used their gin and tonics this summer.
Well, that doesn't really count. My only point is, even though they were former members of this board, we've had no interactions with them relevant to the instant application before us.
That's true.
And in case there are people here who have an interest in this application, I wanted to say that. Who's the lead speaker tonight?
You are?
I'll walk you through the plans. I think Christian will start by telling you a little bit about his business, and then I'll take you through the plans.
Okay. So even though I know who you are, could you say who you are so that the people on TV know who you guys are?
Christian Stromberg. I run and own Saxton's River Distillery here in Brattleboro.
And I'm Adam Hubbard. I'm from Hubbard Land Design, and I've been working on the site plans.
I'm Timberly Hunt. I'm the architect working on the project.
So,
Begin?
tell us
Okay.
about your project, please.
Okay, so some may know, I've been in Brattleboro since 2011. We've grown and have been looking for a good site for 2 years now. And, having looked at just about every property in town, what appealed to me about Route 9 is the fact that it's a good road. It's a access road for the rest of the state. And the reality is it has double the traffic of where we are now. Part of our business is, and an important part is retail, and getting the visibility is kind of critical. I mean, it's difficult, the fact that we have a true kind of factory store model where we're producing where we want people to visit and to experience it in the way Grafton cheese works. Part of the appeal is that you're going to where it's made. So that led to the American Traders property, the Cuthbertson zone on Route 9. It's got a great barn and great retail for us. What it doesn't have is a production facility ready for us to move into. And so that's really what a good chunk of this project is about, is getting that manufacturing facility for us to have some space to grow into, but also built to a standard that we should be working in the nature of what we do. We work in alcohol, and so a lot of what's driven by this design is accommodating the duality of we want people to be able to visit and we want them to see it, but we have to, this is a separate facility, people can look in, but we're not, this isn't open like we are now. And really to, things like drainage and sprinkler systems and all the things that, a small distillery should have. A loading dock, something I dream about. And that's to you, Adam.
That's good. So I'm going to start just so you have a sense of the buildings. Currently, the American Traders the barn and there used to be a pool. It used to be the fitness barn out there. So there's a wing off the back that this is the existing barn, and then this is the production facility here. I just wanted to have you see that sort of 3D version so you have a sense of the scale here. And then I'll take you to the site plan. Is that okay, Fred?
Yeah, that's great.
So, top of the page is north. The existing barn is back here, and the old pool building is in this location. And currently, the whole front of the property is occupied by gravel parking. The production facility that Christian's talking about is this building here, which would be 48 feet by 120 feet. And the access would be, we're proposing to narrow the access off. It's currently a very wide, probably 40 or 50 foot gravel opening there. We're gonna narrow that down to 24 feet and then occupy the sort of west half of that gravel parking with new gravel parking. We're going gravel or paving?
Paving.
We're paving that loop, and what we would do is come into the entrance and then see the retail space and then be looking at the side of that production facility there. Visitors would park in the loop, and utility and delivery vehicles would come around the back of the building to access a storage wing and a loading dock here. This is a sort of loading and storage area. And I don't mind if you interject with questions along the way. I'll sort of walk you through some of the logic that brings us to this design. But I think that one of the chief drivers, there are two primary drivers here. One is sort of visibility and accommodation of people. So you want it to be a nice view from the street, attractive, and obvious where to make your way around the property. The property is in the floodplain. The Whetstone Brook is back here a little bit, and this is the edge of the floodway here. So that we're in the 100-year floodplain. And the problem, one of the issues is that the existing grade is about 496 where the gravel parking is, and 1 foot above base flood elevation, which is where you would have to flood proof to, is 501 for the existing building. By the time you get down here, it's 500. The base flood elevation that declines as the grade declines. So the challenge that presents is that the floor elevation here is much higher. It's about 5 feet higher. It's actually going to be, the floor elevation is going to be 499 and then flood proof to 501. 499.5, and then floodgates at the openings. But the access, now you have an issue with handicap access. If your floor elevation is 4.5 feet above the existing, what we've done is built up grade in this area here so that you can park a handicap space at a handicap space here and access the building without a complicated set of ramps, essentially. This would be all 5% grades up, a little landing area in between, so visitors would come, park, walk in, and then enter the retail space, and also be able to come and look into the production facility. On the back side, this loading dock area is going to be raised in elevation, mostly through fill, but the last 2 feet will be with concrete blocks. The uniblock system or something there, similar there. And so from the road, you would see 2.5 feet of exposed concrete, and then a grade that rises up to it. The idea is to at least have the ability to put some shipping containers there to store things, and those would be above base flood elevation, 1 foot above base flood elevation. We would screen that with a lattice fence that you'd see in the. I'm not sure if you had the updated. We submitted this plan 2 months ago. Got a.
Talk about this.
It's not on that. It should be on the
square.
On the plan that Eric has there.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Oh, you're talking about the screening.
The screening.
Just the
Pardon me. Yep.
So this is really utility on the backside, and then the face of the barn here, the gable end facing the street. So we presented this a couple months ago and had some feedback from the zoning office, the planning office, and responded to some of those questions. And some of those questions are things like landscaping, and the goal of one of the goals here is to create a sort of working environment or a productive environment. So Christian would like to have elements of the distilling business around the site, and agricultural. If it's going to be in a barn shape, it would be nice to have apple trees, pear trees, cherry trees, a garden area, and sort of edibles and pollinating kind of vegetation. But also, it's important, as he said, to have visibility from the street, from passersby. I like the McDonald's impulse, what do you call it, impulse purchasers. People driving by up to Wilmington or crossing the state, and they see a distillery. It's obvious it would be nice to be able to pull in. And so we're proposing a modification of the landscaping standard that is in the code, where they're asking for 33 or 48 planting units. And what we've done, and that would be including 7 street trees along here. We're a little concerned about 7 street trees blocking the view, so we're proposing to bring some of those back behind the front yard setback.
I'm sure that we've gone over this before, but I don't remember how the planting unit system works. So can you give me a little remedial instruction on that?
I'll do my best. It's a large tree is 1 planting unit. A large street tree is 1 planting unit. A medium tree is half a planting unit, and a shrub is quarter of a planting unit.
A third for a large shrub, and that steps down a little bit further.
Right.
Okay.
And there are 2 standards. There's the building planting, and then the front yard setback planting. And honestly, we feel like the requirement is a little intense. We've come up with a plan that softens the views of we have, shad trees and shrubs here with summer sweet that will provide screening to the loading and utility area. These are apple trees along the front, and then some other fruit trees around the stormwater area, and then also in this, these are actually honey locusts in the core here for shade over the parking.
Can I ask kind of a stupid question? No juniper?
We don't have juniper, but maybe we should be.
Oh, I've been thinking of it. It's certainly, unfortunately, it's not a quick-growing tree.
I like the smell.
Yeah. I think some juniper.
But certainly, for that 1950s, development kind of. But yeah, it's. Well, it was the mix. I mean, we obviously had a lot to get through, but it was kind of my whole thing of I don't really want like these just big trees for the sake of, well, we're going to measure them out exactly at 50 feet so it looks like some sort of, I don't know, development. It was kind of unnatural, whereas having an orchard, and likewise not just a juniper, and just planting these cedars every 50 feet, giving it something that's a little more natural that, we're trying to build a barn here to match another barn, like the barn that we're actually going to use. But we have things, that we do use, and we were discussing other herbs that would actually grow here. Everything isn't on this drawing, largely because it's somewhat we're going to have to see how does this really work once we get to it. Right. We want, this idea of like forcing things on it. I want this as best presentable as we can make it. This is something we want the public to do, but also find interesting. If we develop later on some sort of path through that, there's actually things they can visit, like, hey, this is the juniper path, and this is the gin road, as we'll call it. They can explore a mystical journey out to the back lot. But that it works, but we're not trying to force it. That it makes it look like picked trees out of a catalog.
I understand. Brian, I don't remember what the waiver criteria is for the EPU count. Does this come up?
It's not a specific waiver criteria. It's really a matter of whether it's achieving the purpose of the landscaping section. I think Adam proposed a really specific kind of program-directed approach to landscaping. And it sounds there's a willingness to add more landscaping in a kind of organic way in the future.
But we'll not be violating the ordinance if we approve it with less than a certain number?
I think if you think it meets the purposes of the ordinance,
Okay.
I don't think you need any specific waiver.
Fine. So, sorry to interrupt. Please
No,
continue.
that's an important point.
So you're going to put hop arbors along
Yeah.
So-
break up the facade of the...
So one of the
Distillery?
concerns was, or one of the standards in the code is that planes of more than 60 feet need to be articulated or changed in a way to break up the expanse. And this is going to be a paneled building, like a Ford panel or winter panel kind of structure. And it's quite costly to have jogs in the building for panels in the foundation and the flood proofing and the panels themselves. So we've talked about different ways that we could perhaps break up that structure, and one would be we talked about an arbor either attached to the building or built there, but it seemed not in keeping with the goal of the business to attach things to this building. So we presented this idea of 15-foot poles with a crossbar at the top, and hops grow to be about 30. If you give them 30 feet, they'll grow 30 feet. They'll come up to the top of the arbor and then sort of hang off the top. And that is our proposition for sort of breaking up the view of that.
Can I add, Adam? And we also discussed the fact we don't want them growing on the building. They're kind of problematic in that way.
That's right.
And these are also, this is, what we're looking at is a structural skin. And, it's not to be taken lightly you kind of need engineering approval before you attach things to it. It's not, and it's a barn. I mean, the end of the day, this is, I had a lot of issues with, one, obviously there's a cost. We're trying to get this thing built, let alone adding things. But like dormers, you don't just see dormers on barns. They're not, it's a working facility versus, if you ask a farmer, and can you, pretty up and, break up, you got a big wall here. So we're trying to do that some way that works, but like, we don't want to screw with the barn. It's a barn, and, we need it to work and we need it to be built. And, unfortunately our L is on the back, but we can't put the loading dock on the front. It's just.
Right, putting another L on the other side would serve that purpose, but no other purpose.
Okay, you can keep on going, I think, right, Matt?
So, and next I think I've covered landscaping. The next topic.
Super quick question before we move on from landscaping. Tim had emailed in, Tim Cuthbertson, indicating that what might be a wetland is in fact not a wetland. If you could just confirm that that's the case, that would be helpful.
Currently, there's, in response to washouts, I think mostly around Irene, there was some reconstruction down this corner, and so some water has been trapped there. And a small wet area in wet times has formed. It definitely doesn't meet the criteria of a wetland, even a class 3 wetland. It's not half an acre. It's not wet perennially. It dries out in the summer. It gets mowed.
Okay. It was also a berm built up by Leader to, the Cuthbertsons allowed them to build this so that they get it to reseed. The berm is still there. And if the berm was removed, so goes the little, it's a little dam right now.
Sure.
And I'll talk about this a little in the stormwater treatment.
Oh, okay, fine. You can move on.
But your pause there made me remember about one of the concerns of the planning and zoning department is the location of the water line along the front here. I did stop by DPW. Every indication is that it's right at the edge of the road. It actually, the water, I learned the water line comes from Pleasant Valley Reservoir, comes down between the mattress outlet and this building, forms a T here with a 10-inch line going west, and then the 16-inch line continuing down here. The landscaping is proposed away from the edge of the road. We'll be sure to confirm that with the water department at the time of construction. There is a sewer line that is in this area, so we're also going to have to make sure that we know where both those are at the time of construction.
We're quite comfortable that the town will.
We'll have their opinion.
We're not worried you're going to.
So the stormwater treatment, we've proposed a net increase of about 4,600 square feet of new impervious, and we're actually planning a treatment facility here, a detention basin here that would more than accommodate the new impervious surface, it will actually store and treat the stormwater of almost the entire existing impervious as well, that sheds in this direction. Some of the existing impervious sheds to the stream, and we're going to let that run overland through the buffer up here. We'll talk about the buffer in a minute. So we've oversized the pond down here, and we're collecting, because of this this rise in grade that we're using to accommodate handicap access, we've created a bit of a pocket back here. So we have a catch basin that drains to a catch basin here. This catch basin forms the end of a treatment strip through the island here. There won't be curbs on this island. This will be a receiving the runoff from the parking, treating it, infiltrating it, catching it in the catch basin, and then directing it to the detention basin down here. These are Group A hydrologic soils, so that it's sands and gravels, very high infiltration rate. It's optimum for stormwater treatment. Part of the concern of fill in the flood hazard zone is that you're creating more fill in the flood hazard zone that displaces storage for stormwater. What this pond also does, being excavated down, is provides compensatory storage for fill that's not associated with raising the base flood elevation or fill associated with handicap access. Both those two items are excluded from the condition in the ordinance that prohibits fill. There is some fill that you could say is not related to those two items that goes along with the parking. We have compensated for that with excess excavation in the detention area.
Are you fairly comfortable that if we just had a blanket condition that it comply with section 330, that's...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. There were some recommendations from the planning department about the riparian buffer and screening. We have another, in the code, when you have adjacent districts, you're supposed to provide a screen between the two districts. When one's a commercial and one's residential. The next district is across the brook, which is part of Mountain Home Park. And we're not proposing the full measure of the screening and buffer requirement because there's a pretty solid vegetative buffer there presently. And we're gonna plant some wetland buffer seeding and some whips, some small red maples and sugar maples back here, and then let the buffer revegetate on its own.
I was back there during the fluvial erosion hazard zone kerfluffle.
Yes,
but I don't. Yeah, that's
good
fun.
words. Two good words. Fluvial and kerfluffle.
Yeah, it is. I don't really remember what currently is back there, though, except that there are periods where it's like a field and there are periods where it's kind of overgrown stuff. What is it here?
It's mostly mowed with vegetation associated with the stream.
Oh, you mean like reeds and stuff?
More like trees along the stream edge.
Oh, okay.
Is that true? Is that right?
Good part of it's, re-wooding. I mean, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About how tall? Give or take. I mean, we're not going to go out there and measure the trees to check you for
Cindy,
birds.
you have anything to comment?
There's a lot of trees.
Fletch.
I go to later a lot. I know what it looks
Taller
like.
than 10 or 15 feet. I mean,
I would say 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some stuff they're growing. They're like in there.
that's fine. I just wanted to have a very basic idea. You can go ahead.
So we feel like we've gone beyond the professional standard of care with the stormwater. We've got a good infiltration system. We've got good vegetation around here. This pond will, if it fills, would discharge back into the existing sort of depression down here, and then continue on its pattern, the present pattern. We looked at directing it to the stream ahead of Leader, but it's physically not feasible. There's too much elevation in between. So what else can I tell you? Lighting, we have two 15-foot pole-mounted full cutoff fixtures. These would be sort of barn-style round. I thought I saw in the memo that you were looking for a spec, but I thought we had submitted a cut sheet on that.
We can just make it a condition, and as
Yeah.
long as he approves it, that it's consistent with the ordinance, that's fine.
Yeah. The planning and zoning recommended having a photometric plan, but we can safely say that no light will be leaving the property, no glare will be affecting neighbors.
We could do it that way, Brian, right?
Yeah, if it's just 2 pictures and you have the photometric footprint of the fixture, we can just...
It is included in the spec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just fashion our condition, that way you won't have to deal with us on it.
Great. There will be some building mounted lights, also full cutoff fixtures, downcast, and 1, 2, 3, 4 bollard lights lighting the pathway and the area in between here. There would be some seating, a bike rack. This would be kind of a gathering space here.
And there's nothing in the memo, but is there an electric car charger? Do we have to require that?
We do have a EV,
Oh, you do?
proposed EV station out here.
I'm sorry, I just didn't see it.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
There's a lot on the plan.
It's
I
a
think that-
statutory requirement.
Is the state giving me those?
No, but there's a very inexpensive way to comply with it. Basically, it's conduit.
Well, the state actually does have a program where they're putting in stations with some of the money from the DW settlement, so
good.
I'll forward you that contact information.
Yeah, and there's different standards for different ones. We can't let an application go through without complying with the statute.
Yeah.
But as far as we're concerned, you can do what you want, and there are some inexpensive ways to do it, which we know because Brian informed us. But anyway.
And it's associated, it's proximate to the light pole here, so that all the trenching and conduit
Great.
will be there in place. I think that's really it. Any other questions?
Can we talk about erosion control from the soil disturbance?
Yeah. I didn't carry silt fencing or check dams or any of the other sort of standard features because it's a very level site with these really high infiltrating soils. But it's not of major effort or consequence to add some silt fence along the downslope side.
Okay.
I think it's easy to add to the plan and it's easy to add during construction.
So how high is this barn going to be?
35?
It's actually 34'8" from top of grade, but that's...
That was one of the issues of how you measure it. Because this is high, we have to pick it up to get it out of the floodplain. How you measure it off to what part of it's exposed was where, like, we didn't want it to come up like, if you measure it here, it's 35.68, and
there's some requirements for the fixtures and fit up that go along with distilling.
some of the equipment we're looking at is fairly tall, 32 foot plus, so it was right at the point of like where, making sure we had a little room for some extra pipes that we're right at the 35 feet. But then that's when we got into how do you measure it and where you measure it from. It wasn't that we're trying to push it, but knowing what I know of standard equipment, we're trying to accrue,
Accommodate it.
Yeah, that,
Kind of an interesting issue, because if you have a split level on a hill, you don't measure from the bottom of the foundation, you measure from where the foundation becomes the building. And if you did that, you'd be under 35, right?
if you measure from floor height, the floor height's under 35.
I don't know what a floor height is. I'm sorry.
So
I
like
have-
top of slab to the peak
Yeah.
of the roof, I think that's actually lower.
It is.
So it's like 36 feet, because the grade comes up above.
The foundation walls come up 1.5 feet
Right.
higher than the floor elevation.
Oh yeah, I realize it's not like a split level, I just mean it's kind of similar in the sense that it has a more exposed foundation. And in the split level analogy, we don't use that exposed foundation, do we? I don't think we
Yes,
ever have.
you do. According to the design, you'd go out to the back of the basement and measure
Really?
from there.
See, we don't have many single-family residences, so this actually, I don't think has ever come up in the 8 years I've been on this. I'm very impressed that you know that, though.
Well, it mattered to me. And I got into it, like, well, how are we measuring this thing? Because,
Right.
you know, there was a time when there was going to be more foundation exposed, but then we realized, no, we really do have to backfill pretty high, and then, all right, how you measured it still.
Do you have an answer?
I would suggest that you approve up to 45 feet, which is the maximum allowed with the waiver, just so they have the flexibility going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if they need tall equipment, that's a very sensible waiver requirement. Okay. Other questions from members of the board? Are there members of the public who came here to speak to this application? Yes, sir. If you could come up to the microphone, say who you are, and if you live near here, if you could, or you own property near here, if you could just identify what the parcel is, where it is.
My name is Steve Lloyd, and I live at 362 Sunset Lake Road. I have a few comments. I went to the municipal building today to look at the plans, and I also am a member of West Brattleboro Association's Commercial Spaces Committee.
Can I think I swore you in, I just want to make sure you were
No,
sworn.
you did not.
Can I swear you in?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you swear that everything you just said was true,
I do.
by the way? Okay, go for it.
Okay. As I said, I'm a member of West Brattleboro Association's Commercial Spaces Committee, and I'm excited about this proposal. A new business like Saxton's River Distillery is a good fit for West Brattleboro because its manufacture and sale of a local product adds to unique community identity, it expands the tax base, and it offers jobs. Because Saxton's River Distillery will be making a substantial investment in this property, I anticipate them to be a good neighbor for a long time. This will add to the commercial stability of West Brattleboro. As a retired architect who lives on Sunset Lake Road and passes this site at least twice a day, I'm grateful for the recently amended zoning regulations which require that new buildings reference Vermont's agricultural heritage. I also recognize that the Whetstone Brook pushes new development toward Route 9. Therefore, it is especially important that the intent of the aesthetic aspects of the zoning regulations be adhered to, including use of appropriate materials, use of means to break up lawn facades and roofscapes, and appropriate landscaping. I encourage the DRB to approve this project with any conditions you may see fit to impose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak about this application? Yes, Mike.
Michael Bosworth, 330 Meadowbrook Road. I don't have too much to add beyond what Steve has said, but I'm part of that commercial spaces group as well within the West Brattleboro Association, and this is the type of business I think we'd like to see move into West Brattleboro and to expand in Brattleboro itself. And just one of the other aspects of the type of business, it's good to see local ownership, and this also represents that. So I'm definitely in favor of this happening, and we hope that it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any other members of the public who wish to speak? So my notes are that we have to approve a waiver regarding the landscaping, EPUs, and street tree plan. That the applicant needs to provide a cut sheet showing that the lighting fixtures comply with the applicable ordinance. You understand a sign would have to come later. We're not doing the sign tonight. Yeah. Just a little heads up, don't ask for a variance for a sign. They're pretty hard to get.
I was just going to make it a little bigger and a little higher. Is that all right?
Closer to the road.
Yeah.
Well, you can ask for a variance.
I just hope the plows don't hit it.
Pardon me. Sometimes I try.
The state should be fine with that.
The soil, that the erosion control be controlled by silt fencing along the floodway boundary and the southeastern corner.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
The grade of the property directs water towards Route 9. Putting silt fence along the floodway boundary would serve no practical purpose.
Okay, so we can have we can change it that there'll be silt fencing along the southeastern corner and no erosion into the river, and if you're confident you don't need it, fine.
The typical language is downslope from disturbed areas.
That's fine too, but I still want there to be something indicating that not go that direction if you don't need anything in order to do that.
Yeah.
Great. The stormwater management and treatment comply with section 333, which I think I erroneously called 330 earlier. And that there be a waiver for the height, allowing the building to exceed 35 feet and stand up to 45 feet. Is that all right with everybody? So moved?
So moved. Second.
Second. Any further discussion? If there's anything else you want to say about any of this stuff? Okay.
I'm trying to get the indicator.
Sometimes I'm not sure if you're...
Once, twice, so.
So having that in mind, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad you're reusing that building too.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with the pool building?
Oh, we're going to reopen the pool?
Nice.
You dig it out, it's a gun.
Well, based on the flood height, it
bar.
wouldn't be a terrible use for it.
Poolside bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Vermont's only poolside
Yeah,
bar.
swim up bar.
There you go.
As long as everybody wears a wetsuit, it should probably be fine. Thank you.
Turn that off.
If you had told me when I was a kid that the fitness barn was going to be a gym distillery someday, I don't know what I would have said.
I used to work out in that place in high school.
Learey.
We can leave the door open.
Yeah.
now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's open the...
Hey, Timberly, could you open the door?
Please?
Could you open the door? We're keeping all the cold air in. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys.
No, I think this is great. I like that facility out.
Okay, so, folks, we're not quite done yet. If you could just, we've got microphones we need to keep quiet for. Thank you. The next application is 2017-82 Eli Gould for Advanced Technology Management. The applicant requested a continuance to August 21st, 2017. We have a motion to allow that.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0, the motion passes. Our final application is application 2017-110, Catherine Audlin. I don't think you are.
I'm Catherine Aldlin's husband, I'm Chris Blood.
Okay, Mr. Blood.
James, I do need to be sworn in.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say anything in the last one, but
Well, you can just swear that that was the truth.
it was the truth.
You can retroactively swear. The police do it all the time. Were you sworn, Mr. Blood?
I was, yes.
Okay, so, Ms. Hunt, do hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Do.
And the testimony you already sort of gave was also the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Okay. Application 2017-110, Christopher Blood and Catherine Audlin at 182 Elliott Street.
What we're seeking is a,
You just say who you are so that they know.
I'm Timberly Hund, I'm the architect working on Chris and Kate's project. This is Chris Blood, the owner of the property, and his wife own it. Chris and his wife are tearing down a very shoddy and old addition in the back of their house. We're going to replace that addition with more usable space. And one of the interesting features about this site is that it is...
Sir, can you leave it open? A couple of board members were getting cold because of the air con, so we've chosen noise instead of freezing this. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So one of the interesting features about this site is that there's a huge amount of slope from the front door to the rear of the property. And it's actually a great property that, when you look at it at first sight, it looks kind of overgrown. This addition is, it's seen better days. So what we're proposing to do is put that new addition on and connect the house to the back of the site. So there's connection from the first floor to the backyard. And it's not a lot of yard, but it's definitely usable space that they'd like to take advantage of. And in order to do that, to place this addition on the site, what we're asking for is a waiver to go a little bit beyond the property line setback. I think there is a 10-foot setback to the east. And we're proposing to go maybe 4 feet over that setback. And one of the reasons, well, there are two reasons we'd like to do that. The first reason is that part of the yard is not very usable. The grading is steep and awkward. The abutting property is completely overgrown with old cars and other stuff sitting in it. So to push that building over a little bit further would allow us to make for more usable space in the yard as we regrade and make the backyard more habitable. And I guess the other reason to extend that beyond the property line is so there's a view to the front of the house from the rear addition. The only way to get that view to the front of the house would be to overlap that setback, because it's a really, really tight site. And if you'll look in the neighborhood, a good portion, I can't put a number to this, but a good portion of the abutting properties on Elliott Street in general do seem to overtake that setback on both sides. So I don't feel like it would be an eyesore, that it would be something that would not be in conformance to the neighborhood character. And I guess that's about it. I mean, I could tell you more about the project, but I think mainly what we're seeking is that waiver to overlap that boundary line. And originally, when we submitted, I believe when we filled it out, we were asking for the maximum, just to give us some flexibility, and I think the maximum was 7 feet on each side.
I think it has to be 15 feet together. Something like
Yeah, and we can, I don't think we'll do that. I mean, if you guys would approve that, then that would be great. I don't think that's going to happen with the design that we're working on right now. But I think the main element that we're looking for is that to overtake that sight line on the eastern portion of the property.
So your addition is going to go more to the side than to the back.
Yeah, and the reason is there isn't a lot of land there, and the back of the property is sloping pretty significantly, so it's unusable, and we don't want to go too far towards the backyard to give them more usable space. And that side yard, again, it's kind of gravelly and overgrown, and it's really close to the neighbor's house, towards the front of the property. So.
What's the arrangement with the shared driveway? Which side of the house is it on? And if it's on the plan, I'm sorry, it's just not completely clear.
Yeah, so as you look at the plan, north is at the top of the page.
Mm-hmm.
The shared driveway is that hatched area on the top left. And the abutter, Frick, he seems to be okay with, we're doing a lot more work besides just this addition. We're doing a lot of site work with a retaining wall.
I'm sorry, did he submit anything regarding this? No. Okay, I should note for the record, I represent him. It's unrelated to this. I don't think it creates a conflict of interest.
No, I think they have a pretty good relationship with him. They discussed this a long time ago.
Yeah.
They've been in discussions actually the whole time we've been in design.
That's fine, yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt you though, please continue.
Yeah,
Oh, I see, the
that's it.
darkened area here.
The darkened area is that's the 10-foot setback. And right now, the code says 10-foot minimum, 25 total.
Sorry, I was referring to the drive. Is the drive sort of like in front of the dormer on the left side of the building, a little darkened area?
Yep.
Yeah,
That
the
comes
hatched
from
area.
Frick's property?
Yep.
I get it. Okay.
So the building addition on the lower part of the building, that's what we're proposing, and that building addition would overlap that 10-foot setback by
Got it.
a couple of feet.
Yeah, that I get. I just, there was a note in the draft memorandum about
Yep.
the shared driveway, and I think my printout is just a little bit light.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out what it was referring to. Do members of the board have questions for the applicant? Are there members of the public who came to speak to this? You're the only member of the public here, so it's now or never.
I'm good, thank you for asking.
You roll up your windows?
I did.
Good. So there are no members of the public here to speak about this project. We learned in our proposed order that the adjacent properties have side yard setbacks of 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 15, 16, 17, 22, and 32 feet. The average of those numbers is 7.5 feet. And so it seems as though this is quite consistent with the way things are down on Elliott Street. Doesn't appear this would impair fire access or anything like that. It seems to me it's appropriate to have a motion to approve the application.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Have a nice night.
Enjoy your addition.
We will.
New addition.
New addition.
We have 2 kids with more on the way, so
Nice.
it'll be very helpful. Well, I mean, we're planning more. We don't have, sorry.
You can always announce it on the record. That's fine.
So you want to come
We're recording, yeah. Little baby review.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so it is now time for our annual administrative meeting, and I'm going to break from protocol here because we have a prospective member here, and apparently Ms. Hasegawa is trying to recruit you without telling you about a very important thing. If you join the board, I have a standing offer. I will purchase 1 gallon of Walpole Creamery ice cream of your choice. But in addition to that, while we're all here, if you want to ask us questions about the board, I mean, we got through things pretty quickly tonight, and I don't see why you can't. So, do you want to do that? Do you want to know what the heck happened here?
I guess some of the things you were talking about I don't have experience with, so that I have concerns about, property restrictions and things like that. So how would I learn that?
See that spiral book in front of Brian? Brian is an expert on the ordinances, which is why I often just ask him the question, because it's a lot quicker than trying to find it myself.
Okay.
But we have a book of ordinances, and there are some things that come up over and over again. I don't think it's necessary for you to read the entire book of town ordinances. I think if anybody says they do, they're lying.
Good bedtime reading.
I mean, I was on the planning commission, which writes the ordinances for the last rewrite,
Right.
and I need help and review all the time, and I don't really think it's that constructive to try to know them all, frankly. We get the application before we ever have the hearing, and Brian generally drafts a decision that'll say, okay, here are the issues, and here are things that are unanswered that we have to figure out in order to address the issues. And if you have the book and you have that memo, and sometimes we get additional memos from the planning staff, you can basically open up the book, read it for yourself, and you'll be ready to go when you come here. I'd say 20 minutes an application, maybe, and you'd be good to go.
And a lot of us go driving around.
It doesn't hurt
The
for a little
site.
drive-by now and then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If
Or
you,
you
if you
can
don't
go-
know the town that well, you know, you
Right.
take
Or
a
you
look.
can Google map it and look at the site.
When we go into executive session, not just tonight, but just generally, the reason we do that is I'm not sure whether people like or dislike things about an application that I might think conform to a law, but they might think, not so sure about it.
Right.
And some of this stuff is subjective, like character of the neighborhood. And so oftentimes we go, and again, this was not tonight, but we might go in there and take a little straw vote and say, okay, does this conform to the character of the neighborhood? What do you think? And it's just a little easier to do that when we're all together. We don't even have to vote in this hearing. This is just a hearing to put evidence on the record. And so occasionally we'll bat around issues later, but usually if it's fairly clear that it's a simple issue application, I try to do it on the record so we do it quickly. If I'm not sure it's a simple issue, we go to executive session.
Yeah.
I don't think I mess that up too frequently.
No. You can
And-
usually tell when you need to go to executive session.
And sometimes someone will say, I move to go to executive session, and, you know, that's a pretty good way of shooting that flare off the boat and saying, hey, you know, I want to talk about this. There's no requirement that we do all of our discussion about which law applies and which facts we should credit or anything like that. We don't have to do that on the record. We have to have the hearing and take the evidence on the record.
And so, does it happen often that people get very upset if you deny an application? And legally, like, are you responsible for any?
No. If we're right on the law, there's really nothing they can do. If we're wrong, they can appeal to this thing called the environmental court, which really almost only does appeals from boards like this and the Act 250 application appeals. Do they do anything else? I don't think they do. We've had decisions overturned before, and that's their route. I try very hard to avoid there being big emotional blow-ups in this room. We had the tensest application that I can recall us having was over a proposed homeless shelter. And we approved the application. They ended up, they didn't build it because I think they had fundraising issues. But it was divisive, and a lot of members of the neighborhood that it was in said, we don't want this here. And that was not, we were not empowered by the law to consider whether or not it could be there. We were able to think about the dimensions of the building and some other things that they were doing, but it was a fairly limited scope of our review. And I would say we probably had 10 or 15 people who came and spoke. And there were a couple people who didn't have good manners, and it was a little testy. But I would say in the last 5 years that happens maybe once a year.
It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that
It
bad.
wasn't.
Really?
I think that night though was the latest meeting I've been on.
Yeah, it was-
Yeah,
we adjourned at midnight or something.
yeah, that
Yeah.
probably happens once every 8 months, maybe. I mean, it's not every day. And part of the reason it's like that is because I would rather let people talk and avoid having a big emotional blow up when we're trying to have what is essentially a legal proceeding, than not let them talk, possibly give them grounds for appeal, or possibly have it turn into, you know, a scene. I don't want a scene. There are other people.
The 8, 9 years, how long has it been? We haven't really had any
No,
issues that were very heated. I mean, the room's been full in the next room.
right? I mean,
Often what I've seen is when it gets heated, it's because people don't know
right.
and they don't understand.
Misinformed or don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really don't think it's that high pressure on us. If that does happen, I usually take the responsibility of talking to the person. Like, I mean, in that application, there was a point at which I felt like they were actually monopolizing other people's time, and I take responsibility of dealing with it at that point. I do give a pretty long rope, but you know, it's not something the whole board, I think, should have to deal with, and that's what we try to avoid. And I'm continuing what my predecessor and his predecessor did before that, which is let them talk. It's better than risking sort of appearing as if you're some authoritarian body that doesn't want to let neighbors or members of the community speak. But it's tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there was some woman that kept on interrupting the other day, and I in my heart of hearts, I wanted to throw her out. I didn't, but you get those.
Yeah. All right. I don't think there are any other questions that I have right now.
Okay, no pressure, but we really need you, and we're all going to be very upset if you don't join the board. Okay?
Okay.
And
Brian
actually,
will tell you how to go about doing that.
Okay.
and you may already know this, but Mr. Annis here has probably the only working steamboat south of Route 4, and he's invited us all on a cruise. We're going to get to cruise on the steamboat on the river. It's got a built-in shower. It's got like a train horn. It's really cool. And actually, thank goodness your boat didn't work, because imagine if we had gotten out on the
Well,
boat.
yeah, it wasn't. I put a new boiler in it yesterday, so we're on a little way back, and I'm heading up to Lake Champlain for a week shortly. So, but for August we can do it if you come aboard.
Only if.
Only
no
if.
pun intended.
Yeah.
Well, we can bring ice cream on the boat.
Okay.
I mean, imagine telling all of your friends you ate ice cream on a steamboat. Yeah, you can't beat that. All right, now we've got to have a business meeting. So I talked to at least two of you about Dave. He is going to apply to come back.
Well,
It sounded like there was just a break in communication there. And I think he told Brian he's going to reapply, right?
He has reapplied.
He has reapplied. So that's good.
for an alternate slot or a regular slot?
Alternate.
Darn.
I think.
If he's an alternate, we're short of 7. He's going to just be a regular.
He's gonna be a regular, yeah.
Yeah, so.
It's really functionally kind of irrelevant. We had talked about setting up a training, maybe. Can we wait and see if she applies and not do it until afterwards? We do occasional trainings. The last one, we had a lawyer come in and talk about variances, actually, which came up tonight. It's helpful. We're all people with different levels of expertise. I do some land use law, but I don't know a lot about architecture or building. Eric does building and maintenance and commercial
Facilities.
maintenance. Facilities, you make steamboats out of lifeboats. And Michael has done a million different things. He built an auto garage, he ran a restaurant. I actually don't know what you did before you were on the board.
Development.
Real estate development.
No, HUD development.
Okay.
HUD-funded development.
Okay, so we all sort of have our little niches of expertise, but it's very frequent, despite most of us being, I think you're the shortest at 2 years, 2.5 years?
Eric and I came on.
Yeah, we came about the same time,
Okay.
yeah.
We all still have to ask pretty stupid questions all of the time,
Yeah.
either to the applicant or to Brian, or often both. So, I mean, don't be intimidated by the idea that you don't know about this kind of stuff, because none of us really.
No, I mean, I've been, 8, 9 years, I guess, and I still, there's things that I have.
It's a learning curve.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
I'm on the listers in Brattleboro, so it's kind of neat because I get that aspect of it too. That's also another fun one to do.
What is?
Listers.
Hey, let's not, don't be.
No, we're full up. There's only 3 of us, so. But no, I enjoy serving on town boards. It's better than town meeting.
Oh, I like town meeting.
Oh God, get me out of here.
So we've got to nominate, and we have to elect a president, a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, right? Okay, so we got to do that. Normally,
I nominate James to be
you can call me
chair.
Jim.
Second.
James.
You don't actually need the second nomination, but I appreciate it. Are there any other nominations?
No.
So we got to move that the nominations be closed.
Okay. I move they be closed.
Okay. Second. We do have to second that.
Second.
Sorry, I know Robert's rules. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think, was Joe our vice chair, Brian?
Eric was actually vice chair.
Eric's our vice chair.
I
All
think
right.
so, yeah.
So I nominate Eric to continue his excellent duty as vice chair and captain of the
Only if Jim's here.
DRB.
Be on time, Jim.
So the other, have a motion to close nominations there. Anybody?
So moved.
Motion to close nominations.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You gotta vote on this because we only have 4. Sorry.
There we
It's a
are.
little
Okay,
awkward.
you saw it.
4-0. And we have to move, we gotta get a nomination for clerk.
For Brian, for clerk.
Okay, we got a nomination. Any further nominations? Motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Okay, motion seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion, all those against? None. Motion passes 4-0. I move that we cast as a body a single vote to approve to accept the nominations of me, Mr. Annis, and Mr. Bannon.
So moved.
Well, I moved.
Oh, you moved. Second.
Okay, second. Any further discussion? This is a kind of archaic Robert's Rules procedure, but I'm doing it so that we don't have to vote for ourselves, and it's just a little less, it's a little easier. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. Oh, was there any discussion? All right.
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Does that conclude what we have to do?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any administrative matters anybody wants to discuss while we're in our annual meeting? We don't have to, I just...
I move we adjourn.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Meeting's concluded.